this coming weekend. UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2, going down in it's Saudi Arabia, yeah?
It's Yas Island, Etihad Arena.
Abu Dhabi, excuse me.
Abu Dhabi,
Saudi Arabia.
My brain was not working.
Abu Dhabi.
But they
UAE.
did recently agree to do an event in Saudi Arabia.
Sweet.
Which maybe that's why that was in your head.
Perhaps. Or I'm racist. Excuse me. Right, here we go. Before we talk about these 6 or 7 bouts that we're going to talk about, are there any other fights or fighters that you guys want to quickly spotlight for our viewers?
I'll throw a couple out. Omar, go first if you want.
Dog, are they starting this fucking card with Ginger Khabib?
They are. Yes.
They're out of their fucking minds. Why would you start that there? That seems to be not the way. Again, and then with Bruno Silva, Bruno Silva ain't nobody.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Agree. Yeah. He's the curtain jerker, and they're giving him Bruno Silva right out the gate. And he's favored. He's minus 265 over Bruno Silva. And Bruno Silva's no joke.
No.
But we've been hearing about the myths of Ginger Khabib for a while here. And we are going to see what's up. He's, from what I have been able to watch of this guy, clips-wise and things I read about him, he's a pretty nasty striker. And Bruno Silva will get in scraps for sure. He is hittable as good as he is. So we'll see if he could put Silva down.
His nickname is Shot a Bullet.
Correct.
Cool, man. Anybody else?
I'll shout out Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah.
I don't know why Nathaniel Wood is fighting Muhammad Naimov, who is 1-0 in the UFC. I thought Nathaniel Wood was at the point where he was getting a ranked opponent, and instead he gets Muhammad Naimov. But I don't love it because Naimov is a dude who's coming down from lightweight, and Wood is a guy who recently fought at bantamweight. So it feels like a little bit of a risky matchup for Wood when I thought he should be getting rewarded with a big name. So I don't know. I think he can get through it, though. He is a 3-1 favorite as well. So we will see. But he's definitely a talented guy to keep an eye on these prelims.
Anybody else, Omar?
No, that's pretty much it, man. The card is pretty much
into
stacked in a good way for us to talk about.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Okay, we start things off on the prelims in the bantamweight division. Javid Basharat taking on Victor Henry. Basharat, the Snow Leopard, the 28-year-old out of London, England, undefeated, 14-0, coming off of a unanimous decision victory over Mateus Mendonça, or Mendonce, is it?
Yes, Mendonce, yeah.
Back in January of this year. Victor Henry is the 36-year-old out of Los Angeles, California, 23-6 as a pro. Most recently, a split decision victory over Tony Gravely. Mark, give us the odds, your take, and your pick.
All right. Actually, like both of these prelims that we're going to do more than either of the first 2 fights on the main card. Huh. And I really like this one. Odds are wider than I thought they would be. I knew Javid would be the favorite, but he is minus 600. Victor Henry is plus 425. 2 inches of height and 1 inch of reach for Basharat. Like I said, I really like this fight. I'm glad it got rebooked after it fell apart the first time. I'm interested to see what Basharat can show here because I think Victor Henry is very good. He beat Hani Barcelos, who you guys know I rate. He fought a competitive fight with Rafael Assunção. But as you guys also know, I'm very sold on Javid Basharat, on both Basharats, to be honest, his brother too. I think Javid is going to show that he is just a level above where Henry is. I think that striking-wise, at minimum, Javid can hang with Henry and maybe even beat him in the striking. But that is definitely where it could be the most tricky because Victor Henry can be a difficult striker to deal with. But I think Basharat can lean on the grappling and use that as his edge in this fight. Not like Henry can't grapple, but I don't think he can grapple like Basharat can. Basharat has been incredibly controlling and tough to shake throughout his UFC career thus far, and I think he can do the same thing here. I don't necessarily see a finish. I do think this could be a bit of a scrap at times just because of the fight that Victor Henry brings, but I think Basharat will be the clear winner in the end, so I will say a UD for him.
Omar?
I also like Basharat in this fight. I think it's going to be a close fight, though. I think it's going to be one that goes the distance. I think even at times it might even look a little point fighty, just because I think they're going to be trying to play a little bit of chess with each other. But I do think once he gets into those difficult areas, I do think Basharat will be able to lean on his grappling, just like Mark talked about and alluded to. So I'm going to go with Basharat here, but I'm going to do the full decision.
Yeah, we are unanimous in this unanimous decision. I think I agree with Mark. I think Basharat's going to show that he's a level above. And even though he is, in his 14-0 record, he is a finisher. Victor Henry is not the guy that he's going to get the finish over. Henry himself has also never been finished, even though he has lost 6 times. So I see Basharat getting his hand raised by unanimous decision. All right, moving on to the flyweight division. Tim Elliott taking on Muhammad Mokaev. Tim Elliott, the 36-year-old out of Lee's Summit, Missouri. He is 19-12 with 1 draw, 10 of those wins coming by way of decision. He is 8-10 overall in the UFC in 2 separate UFC stints. His first stint, he went 2-4 and got cut. Now he's back, and he is currently 6-6 on this stint in the UFC. But he's riding back-to-back wins coming into this weekend. Most recently, a decision victory over Victor Altamirano back in June. He has a tall test in front of him. Muhammad Mokaev, the Punisher, a 23-year-old prospect out of Manchester, England. He is undefeated, 10-0, with 1 no contest in there as well. He is undefeated thus far in the UFC, 4-0 under the UFC banner. Of his 10 victories, 7 of them have come by a finish. Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick of Mokaev versus Tim Elliott.
This is such a wild fucking fight. I mean, just thinking about the actual prospect of how this fight can go. I mean, I kind of have this image in my head of, if you've ever seen the cartoons when the guys get into a fight and it's just a big dust ball with guys rolling around. It's kind of how I feel like this fight can end up being, at least for a little while. The one thing I think we have to keep in mind is Mokaev is coming off a pretty good injury at this point. So whatever they did to his knee, he said it wasn't that bad. Here we are in October. Yeah. That happened in March. I'm just saying it might have been pretty bad. So, I'm just saying. So, there's something to keep in mind. Maybe it's 100% healed up. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But Tim Elliott is a motherfucker, man. And Tim Elliott's got a lot of experience behind his belt. I think the thing we're going to have to really consider is, do we think that Mokaev is going to be able to run over Tim Elliott? Is he going to be able to beat him at every, exchange? And honestly, man, I kind of think he does. I think Mokaev is really good. I think we haven't really seen a lot of faltering from Mokaev. And if he loses this fight, then he loses this fight. But up until this point, he looks great. So I think I'm going to go Mokaev here. I'm going to go Mokaev by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'll hop in here as well. I totally agree. I think I kind of want to say this is a bit of a mismatch because I think Mokaev is a phenom. I am high on Mokaev, and I think that he does find a finish in here with Tim Elliott. Give me a second round club and sub for Mokaev. Mark?
So Vegas is with Mike. I am with Omar. Vegas has Mokaev at -460. Tim Elliott is +340. So pretty wide odds. I land more with Omar. I think that this is a big test for Muhammad Mokaev. I skipped over the height and reach. So let me give you that quick. Height is the same. Mokaev will have a 4-inch reach advantage, which is actually pretty fucking big to be having as a flyweight. But yeah, I think this is a hell of a test because Tim Elliott is not an easy out for anyone, not even for Demetrius Johnson. His striking is quirky. He'll find ways to land on you. His grappling is high level and nonstop. He's defensively sound on the feet, even though his style is kind of awkward. He's just not an easy matchup. I do think the X factors in this fight sit on the side of Mokaev in terms of the speed and a little more power in the strikes. So I think I'm gonna trust that he can win 2 of these rounds. I don't really foresee a finish. I mean, I guess a sub is live. Mokaev is always hunting subs, and that is the one thing that you can catch on Tim Elliott because of how much he'll try to scramble and the way he can kind of expose himself at times. So that's live. But I honestly, so Elliott, what did I just say? Elliott's plus 340 dog. I wonder what he is to win a decision because I don't hate a sprinkle on that because I feel like for a few fights in a row now, we have seen Muhammad Mokaev in close fights that he arguably could have lost if they hit the cards, and he's kind of found something in the third in what was a very close fight. So it wouldn't shock me for Elliott to find a way to win this thing on the cards, to be honest. But maybe it goes the other way, and we get the time where Mokaev really takes his huge step and announces himself here. So who knows? We will see. But I'm going to stick with just a UD for Muhammad Mokaev, just a little cleaner, a little faster, a little more power. Gets it done.
Okay, in the bantamweight division, Nurmagomedov takes on, how do you say this kid's name? Muin Gafurov?
Gafurov, yep.
And it's Muin?
I believe. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, Nurmagomedov, the 31-year-old out of Dagestan, Russia, 17-3 as a pro with 9 finishes. Most recently, coming off of a loss against Jonathan Martinez back in March of this year by unanimous decision. All 3 of his losses have come by decision. He has not been finished ever in his 20-fight career. He will be standing across from Muin Gafurov, Tajik, the 27-year-old out of Tajikistan. He is 18-5 as a pro with 17 finishes. Only 1 of his wins has gone to the scorecards, and he's looking to get his very first UFC win, having lost his debut back in June to John Castaneda by UD. Mark, start us off this time. Give us the odds for this fight, your take and your pick.
So they're closer than I thought they would be, I guess because of the finishing ability of Gafurov. He's a plus 180 dog. Saeed is minus 225 as the favorite. Saeed is 1 inch taller. He will have a 2-inch reach. This is another one where I don't entirely get the booking. Like, I get it, they're both coming off a loss, but Saeed has been fighting some top dudes, and Gafurov debuted and lost to John Castaneda, so I don't know if the goal here is just to showcase Saeed over in Abu Dhabi. But again, as you said, Gafurov has a ton of finishes, so you never know. But I still believe Saeed is very talented and that he can put it together in the UFC more than he has thus far. I think that in this one, he can really just kind of outskill Gafurov in the striking. He's not an easy dude to hit cleanly. I know Gafurov carries that power, but I think he can kind of piece him apart and maybe even find a sneaky sub as this fight goes on. So I'm going to say Saeed lands something clean, kind of stuns him, transition to grappling, finishes him with a sub. So round 2 sub, Saeed Nurmagomedov.
Omar.
Yeah, I would have to agree as well. I just think Saeed is on a different level than Gafurov is.
Go with it.
But yeah, I think Nurmagomedov's wrestling is going to be a little bit better. He has some decent striking as well, but I think he can lean on his grappling and on his wrestling at the end of the day. So I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision.
We are 1 on this one as well. Give me Nurmagomedov. I also will say UD like Omar. I think that Tajik will do what he has to do to stave off the submission. So give me the Dagestani on the cards. Okay, middleweight division. Another Dagestani, Ikram Aliskerov, taking on Warlley Alves. So Aliskerov, the 30-year-old out of Dagestan, Russia. The prospect's record is 14-1 with 10 finishes, and he is riding a 6-fight professional win streak coming into this weekend. He won on Contender Series before his last fight, and then he won his UFC debut in impressive fashion, knocking out Phil Hawes in a little over 2 minutes. He'll be standing across from another test, Warlley Alves, the 32-year-old out of Brazil. He is 14-6 as a pro with 10 finishes, and he's very much looking to get back in the win column because he has lost back-to-back fights against Jeremiah Wells and Nicholas Dalby back in January. Okay, Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick.
I mean, Aliskerov has looked real fucking good, man. It's hard to deny how good he's looked in his last couple fights. The Contender Series obviously was the one I'm another one I'm referring to. But the Phil Hawes fight, the way he dispatched Phil Hawes was ridiculous. Phil Hawes has kind of been not doing great, right? He had a little bit of a skid or whatever, but the performance itself I thought was super impressive. And Warlley Alves is another one who's kind of been a little hot and cold in that regard as well. Looks good till he doesn't. And I just think Aliskerov here is just going to be better overall. So I'm going to go with Aliskerov here. I think he does get a finish. I think it happens in the second round, and I think it'll be a knockout.
Mark?
Yeah, Aliskerov is a pretty big favorite, as you may imagine. He's minus 630. Warlley Alves is plus 450. 1 inch of height and 4 inches of reach for Aliskerov. I've always liked Warlley Alves. I always felt like he has more talent than what his win-loss record has kind of shaken out to be thus far. But to take this fight on late notice, up a weight class from where he's been fighting his whole UFC career, whether this was a planned jump that he was going to do in his next fight or not, I tried to figure that out. I'm not sure. But to do it, and to do it against a guy as scary as Aliskerov, it's just not a spot where I can choose to believe in Warlley here. So it could be crazy out of the gate, depending on how Warlley chooses to play it. He has certainly had fights where he comes out like a madman, but whichever way he does choose to play it, I'm going to say he ends up getting caught. So I will say Ikram Aliskerov, round 2, TKO.
Yeah, man. Totally agree. I think all the factors that you said, aside from the talent, the fact that he's fighting up a weight class and on short notice. I mean, first of all, clap it up for Warlley Alves, man. What a dog. That being said, got to go with Aliskerov. I'm going to go first round knockout. Gets another one, and he keeps marching on. And so will we. Here we go. These last 3 fights are very, very exciting. First off, in the light heavyweight division, Magomed Ankalaev returns against Johnny Walker. Ankalaev, the 31-year-old, out of Dagestan, Russia, 17-1 with 1 draw, 9 finishes, all 9 of them knockouts. After losing his UFC debut to Paul Craig back in 2018, he rattled off 9 consecutive victories, and then recently drew against Jan Blachowicz back in December. He'll be standing across from the big man, Johnny Walker, the 31-year-old out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Record stands at 21-7 with 19 finishes, 16 of them knockouts, and he's riding an exciting 3-fight win streak featuring 2 finishes. Most recently, he got the UD over Anthony Lionheart-Smith back in May. Omar, your turn to go first. Give us your take and your pick.
This fight is pretty goddamn wild to me. And I say that just because Magomed Ankalaev seems like the kind of guy that his game plan is going to be very hard, very straightforward. Basically just trying to create damage and trying to tenderize Johnny Walker, for lack of a better word at this point. He's basically just going to try to break him down as long as he possibly can, as long as it takes, until Johnny Walker collapses and kind of folds to, the pressure, the attack, the ground, all of it, right? Just basically trying to overwhelm him with power and skill. Johnny Walker has kind of gotten to a point now in his career where, we've lost the button mashing Johnny Walker, right? We're not doing random backflips in the cage anymore. We're also not doing nothing in the cage, so that's also an improvement. But we've kind of found this middle ground where I think he's still trying to figure out what his game really is, and he's been a lot more measured in his approach. I just don't think he's going to have the leeway to have that much rope to take his time in this fight. I think Ankalaev is just going to be a little bit too aggressive, a little too strong, and I think he's going to feel the power, and he's going to feel it early, and I think it's going to take him off of his game. So I'm going to go with Ankalaev here. I think he's going to be able to get the best of Johnny Walker. I think he even finishes him. I think I go 3rd round TKO.
I'll go next. Before I hear these odds, I'm guessing Ankalaev is going to be a favorite. That being said, man, when Johnny Walker came onto the scene, when he came into the UFC, I was super high on Johnny Walker. I thought, man, look at this guy's size, plus his athleticism, his speed, his power. this guy is going to be the next champ at 205. Then he hit a couple of rough patches. First, he ran into the heat check that was Corey Anderson. And he lost 2, got another win over Ryan Spann, then lost another 2. Now he's on this 3-fight win streak where he has really found a new level to his game. Coach John Kavanaugh, I think, takes a lot of credit for that, getting him to calm down, getting him to realize, wait a second, I'm huge. I have great power for this weight class. I have to be more patient and just wait for my opportunity and rely on that power. And that's what he did in his past 3 fights. I'm going to make a fun pick here, guys. I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. I'm going to say Johnny Walker stuns the MMA world to an extent. And I think he's going to finish Magomed Ankalaev. And I'll say he does it. I'll say he does it in the second round. Mark, tell me why I'm crazy.
All right, the odds are minus 365 for Ankalaev, plus 275 for Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker is, I mean, not surprising. We know he's huge, but 3 inches taller than Ankalaev and will have a 7-inch reach advantage on Ankalaev. He's a big fucking man, Johnny
Jesus
Walker.
Christ.
Because Ankalaev ain't a small man.
No.
He's huge. He is in the greatest form of his entire career, without a doubt. And I don't hate Mike's pick because I think he is actually a live underdog in this fight. If there's someone who's going to find a way to beat Magomed Ankalaev these days, a guy who could pull some crazy huge strike or a rush or something out of thin air is not a bad candidate to do it, because Ankalaev really likes to fight like a buttoned up, this is what I'm going to do right now, this is what I'm going to do next, this is the plan type of fight. And a guy with the wild, aggressive, potentially fight-changing style that a Johnny Walker has is something that could force a mistake out of Ankalaev. So I don't hate the pick. I'm not going to make it. I debated it. I am going to go Ankalaev. I think he's just too well-rounded because he is a very good striker. So it's certainly possible he could be fine in that department. And if that is not going his way, he should be able to wrestle Johnny Walker into dust. The question is just, will he use his friggin' wrestling? Because early on we saw the wrestling dominance from this man, and then he just decided he didn't really like it anymore. And you saw in the Jan Blachowicz fight that he was losing what happened when he was like, maybe I should try this wrestling thing, and then it was pure dominance from that point on.
On one leg, no less.
Correct. Yeah. So I gotta assume that that was a little bit of a wake-up call, and that he knows that is his easiest path to victory in this fight. And Walker has looked improved in the grappling, don't get me wrong, but I just think the smother from Ankalaev is going to be a lot. So I will trust that he uses the wrestling, and I will say Magomed Ankalaev by UD.
Okay. Let's keep marching on, guys, to the co-main event. UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. In the in the middleweight division, Khamzat Chimaev.
Really fast, I'm sorry. Did we know Dariush versus Sarukian was booked already? Because if we didn't, it's booked.
They must have just done that.
Yep, December 2nd. I guess it's the main event.
Wow.
It's on
God damn.
Dariush and Sarukian. Good for Sarukian. He finally got a big fight.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, good for Dariush. That's a hell of a one to get back on the wagon with.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a big fight.
Yeah, man.
All right, Mike, I'm sorry to ruin your co-main event build. Please begin.
That's okay.
Again.
Co-main event, Kamaru Usman taking on Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev was originally supposed to face
Paulo Costa.
Costa had some kind of elbow surgery out of nowhere. And who steps up but the former UFC welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman, stepping up to middleweight, man. He was always a huge, super jacked welterweight, and now he's going to basically cut way less weight. I think he still cut a little bit.
Yeah, he said he was cutting 85. A bit.
Stepping up. All right. Chimaev, the 29-year-old, fighting out of Stockholm, Sweden, undefeated, 12-0. Only one of those 12 wins has gone to the scorecards. 6 knockouts, 5 submissions. Most recently, he submitted another late notice switch up in Kevin Holland back in September of last year. So Chimaev returning after a little more than a year. He'll be standing across from Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian nightmare. Not as good as the Nicaraguan nightmare, I'll have to say. 36 years old, 20-3 as a professional with 10 finishes, 9 of them knockouts. But Usman lost his welterweight strap to Leon Edwards back in August of 2022, got back in there, and then lost again in the rematch to Edwards, this time by a majority decision. And now he's moving up, stepping up in a big way, taking on the boogeyman, Khamzat Chimaev. Mark, why don't you start us off this time? Give us the odds of this awesome fight, and then your take and your pick.
So it's definitely the biggest underdog Kamaru Usman's been in maybe ever. He is plus 250. Khamzat Chimaev is minus 320 as the favorite.
Wow.
2 inches of height for Chimaev, 1 inch of reach actually for Usman. This is a fight, obviously, that a lot of people had always hoped for down at welterweight during the rise of Chimaev when Usman was the champ and all that. They had talked about fighting each other a bunch of times, even after Usman lost the rematch to Leon recently. There was talk again of this fight, but Chimaev kind of already had plans of going up to middleweight, and apparently Usman tried to pitch Dana on letting it happen at like 178 or something like that, and Dana was just anti-catchweight and didn't want to do that, and now Usman ends up accepting it at 185 anyway, because MMA is the weirdest sport ever, and this is how this had to finally come together. But as for the fight, I know everyone is clamoring to pick Khamzat Chimaev here, and I guess I am going to pick him also, but Kamaru Usman is really, really good, and he could test Khamzat in a lot of ways here. Like, I feel like Usman lost the belt, and then he's, like, coming up and taking it on short notice, and everyone's kind of like, it's too much. But, like, don't count this man out, because, first off, if Chimaev is going to – well, let me get to that next, actually. I'll say this first. Is Chimaev going to out-wrestle Kamaru Usman? Like, maybe he is, but have we ever seen another human out-wrestle Kamaru Usman?
Here's what I saw. I saw Chimaev lift DC's fat ass like if he weighed nothing. That's what I saw. And if he can do that to DC, it's very possible with adrenaline, because that was outside of an elevator.
Yeah.
So with adrenaline, can he pick up a 200-pound at most Usman? I kind of do think that that's possible.
Trying to prevent being lifted, though, dude.
I don't disagree with that.
Can he pick him up scenario?
I don't disagree with you at all. DC's still like 240 fucking pounds right now or something. Like,
I mean,
he's a big boy.
Maybe he can, but I'm pretty sure Usman has the best takedown defense in the UFC. I could be wrong, but I feel like I've heard that before. So it's far from a sure thing, considering we've never seen anyone do it to Kamaru before. Secondly, which is what I almost started to say before, is if Khamzat is going to come out guns blazing, the way that we know he's prone to do, especially if it's with wrestling that Usman is able to nullify, at least in the early going, could we see cardio become a factor? You know, because for Chimaev to come out that hard that quickly the way he does, if he's trying to wrestle and the scrambles are not going his way and he has to work that hard early, you know, who knows what happens there? Because, and maybe Khamzat has cardio for days. That's what I mean about all of this. That there's a lot of unanswered questions about Chimaev, even though he's made it this far in his career already. So maybe he does have cardio for days and he's going to be 100% fine. But we know that Usman does. We know that he can fight 25-minute fights on a regular basis. We know the way that he can pace himself and control exchanges and win rounds as fights go on. So if Chimaev does come out hot in round one and it doesn't necessarily go how he wants it to go, you wonder how he adjusts to that. So one way or another, I think we're going to learn a lot about Chimaev in this fight. But I'm going to go with him because if he can somewhat manage his burst and his push, then I do think that his, like, I'm here to kill you style against Usman's more buttoned-up style could be an advantage. I don't think Kamaru is going to love dealing with the swarm that Chimaev puts on, as long as Chimaev can maintain that swarm. Plus, we've seen Usman fight a lot of smaller guys in this run. Like, Colby is not a big 170-pounder. Jorge's a former lightweight. Burns is a former lightweight. RDA is a former lightweight. I could see the size and strength of Chimaev maybe being just enough to edge Kamaru here. So, also I'll say this. There's this clip circling today of open workouts where it sounds like Usman tells Justin Gaethje that something popped when they fall on the ground. Both him and Gaethje have come out and adamantly denied this. Usman even like clowned the reporter saying like, what a garbage take. Like, at no point do I say anything like this. I don't know if they're just covering it up or not, because it sure sounded like that, and his face looked concerned, and he got up slow. So I don't know. If something did, he has knee issues, obviously, for people who don't know. So if something did happen to his knee, there's a chance this could get ugly quick. That obviously changes everything. But I'll assume it didn't, and I will say he makes this a competitive fight, but I'll go with Chimaev in the end, 29-28.
Omar.
UD.
Yeah. I love Kamaru Usman. I have a lot of faith in Kamaru Usman. I think if this was anybody else, I think I'd be more confident in Kamaru Usman. But there's just a lot of factors that are not on his side, I think, with the circumstances, him moving up in weight, it being last minute, and all these other things. And I've seen a lot of training video, I've seen the training videos that Chimaev has put out there. I've seen the training videos that Kamaru has put out there. And, like, at this point, just what's visible, Chimaev looks a lot more impressive, man. There's just something about him that seems like he's just got that little extra bit of whatever it is to him right now. So I'm just going to go with my instinct on this one, man. This fight really could go either way. Both of them are extremely fucking good, and both of them have ways to win this fight. But I just think that Chimaev is going to get the opportunity to show how good he really is. Hopefully that's the case just because of how much shit that boy talks on a regular basis. But I'm going to go with Chimaev here, man. I don't think he sleeps Kamaru or anything crazy. But what I do think happens is I do think he subs him. And I think he subs him in the third round.
So I think that this could be a classic. I think somewhat similarly to Burns' fight with Chimaev. I also think that this could very well be a y'all must have forgot fight for Usman, who is coming off of back-to-back losses against a guy who has proved to be, in this phase of their careers, just a stylistic matchup for Usman. But, man, I just feel like Chimaev is just going to be too much for Usman at this stage of his career. And now he's 36. Chimaev is 29. I know. I'm going with the younger guy again. But it's not that he's younger. He's I think, going to be much more physically imposing. To Mark's point, Usman is not going to be used to that. I think he's going to be like, damn, this guy's big and strong. And Usman is usually used to the one who's the bigger and stronger guy fighting down at 170. So I think that might surprise him to a certain extent when it's, when rounds are live in the cage, so to speak. So I'll make the somewhat more boring pick because I do think it could be a classic, and I'm certainly rooting for that to happen. Give me Chimaev by decision. I'll say unanimous decision for Khamzat bores Chimaev. I want to be cool. I want to take Usman, but I don't think he's the guy to hand Chimaev his first loss, unfortunately, at this phase in his career. If this was Usman 5 years ago, perhaps. Not 5 years ago, but,
I love
5 years, 4 or 5 years ago.
I saw a picture today, like a lot of times they have like comparison pictures, Usman at 170, for example, or like anybody, right? But they had a picture of Usman at 170, then they had a picture of Usman at 185. And a lot of times when you see like these comparisons, especially like if it was Conor McGregor, like you'll see the vast difference between what McGregor looks like. Kamaru Usman looks exactly the fucking
I had the same thought.
I know what you meant. I know what you're saying.
He looks this is exactly the same picture. It is not even any different. It's the same fucking picture.
Yeah.
So
all right, let's do this.
So Dana has said the winner of this fight will get a middleweight title shot. So if Usman gets the middleweight title shot, he will have done it by beating no middleweights other than Chimaev, if you want to count him as that. If Chimaev gets the title shot, he will have done it by beating Gerald Meerschaert as his best middleweight win, and then Usman, who's obviously a welterweight. So either way, it's going to be a strange middleweight title shot.
Yeah, you're right.
Although for Usman, at least, he can say he has beaten Strickland before. So he has that in his back pocket.
At 170, but yes.
Right.
Yes.
Didn't he beat him bad?
I mean, he Usman'd him.
Right?
He Usman'd him. He wrestled him.
It's kind of worked him. Yeah. All right. Main event time. UFC 294 in the lightweight division. The belt is on the line in the rematch. Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander Volkanovski. It was supposed to be the rematch between Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. But Oliveira, as we know, he suffered a terrible gash on his eyebrow in his training camp just how many days ago? 12 days ago or something like that. And the UFC did their magic. They got on the phone, and Mr. Volkanovski stepping in and stepping up in the biggest way. So here we go. Makhachev, the 31-year-old champion out of Dagestan, 24-1 as a pro, riding a 12-fight professional win streak coming into this weekend. Of his 24 wins, 15 have been finishes, 11 of those submissions. Most recently, he got that UD over Volkanovski back in February of this year. Volkanovski, Alexander the Great, the 35-year-old out of Windang, New South Wales, Australia. He is 26-2 as a professional with 16 finishes, 13 of those knockouts. After dropping the decision to Makhachev back in February, he defended his featherweight title against Yair Rodriguez in July and finished El Pantera with punches in the third round. Didn't even need the championship rounds. So Volk was feeling it, and now he's getting right back in the ring, challenging for the 55 belt yet again against Makhachev. Here we go. I will go first without even seeing these odds. Guys, I'm going with field pick here. I think Volk gets it done, man. I think in their first matchup, I think Volk in certain spots showed Makhachev a little too much respect or a little too much caution. I think Volk steps on the gas a little bit more. And I'm going to say that Alexander Volkanovski hands the champ his second knockout loss. I think he's going to TKO him. I think he's going to hurt him and swarm him. And I think whoever's the ref, be it Herb or anybody else, is going to have to pull Volkanovski off of Makhachev. Give me Volkanovski, I'll say another, before it gets to the championship rounds, give me another third round TKO, double champ, Alexander the Great. We're going to be freaking out. That's my call. That's my pick. Mark, give us the odds and your pick.
All right, the odds. Islam Makhachev is the favorite, as you may expect. He is minus 260. Alexander Volkanovski is plus 210. Short notice, dude. You got to factor that in.
I guess. I think it's more than 2-1. I think it's
more
than
I thought it was going to be. It's more than I thought. Volkanovski having a 2 to start his underdog odds is not something I expected to see.
Yeah.
But here we are. 4 inches of height for Islam, 1 inch of reach for Volk, because he is so damn long. Here's where I'm at for this fight. If this fight was truly booked ahead of time, both guys having camps, getting to prepare for the other guy again after having fought each other already, I would have picked Alexander Volkanovski. I don't feel nearly as good about it now, knowing that Volk is coming off the couch on only 10 days' notice. Not nearly as good about it. And you've heard him question his own cardio in some of these interviews. Not question it, but, he said things like, I'm sure my cardio will be there, but I'd rather finish it early and not find out. And that's not the kind of things you normally hear coming from Volk. So that concerns me a little bit. But where I'm at, as I was saying, is that I'd rather take the guy I was going to pick anyway and be wrong than not take him and have him win and know I didn't take it. So I am going to go with Alexander Volkanovski.
Wow.
I think the same thing Mike thinks, which is that in the first fight, Volk didn't push things the way he's capable of. You've heard interviews where he has said that he was surprised initially that Islam wasn't stronger and that he just assumed that Islam was saving it, and he chose to not push as much himself so he would be ready for that when Islam pushed. And then it never came. He said that the strength he felt from jump was the same strength he felt throughout, and that Islam was just not as strong of a guy as he expected him to be. So I think this time he will respect him less. Maybe that's not the right word. Obviously, he respects him, but you know what I mean. Show him less respect than he did. Go in there expecting to finish him after what he did to him in round 5, and do just that. To circle back to the reality of the short notice fight that is in front of me here, it's possible he does push early because he knows the cardio may not be there, and that Islam survives that push, and then this gets ugly for Volk late. That's 100% possible. Also, is it possible that Volk isn't as strong this time in comparison, considering last time he had a long build-up to get his body to 155, and this time he was planning to fight Elliott Spore in a few months? Yes, also 100% possible, and maybe that affects how well he can deal with Makhachev's grappling. So Islam could easily hang right with him for a couple early competitive rounds and then take this fight over and win rounds more clearly than he did in the last fight, and end up winning this one. And I picked Islam last time. I scored it for him last time. All that. But I've just had this feeling that if they fought again, Volk would put him out. And as much as I hate the whole short notice deal fucking that up for me, I'm not going to risk it happening and me not having picked it. So I am also going with Alexander Volkanovski by round 3 TKO.
Wow. All right, Omar, take us home.
Well, I think with the fans that we get for Islam Makhachev, the Mokaev crew, and I think we're going to get some shit for this pick here.
Did we just lose Omar?
I'm also going Alexander Volkanovski here.
Oh my gosh.
I am.
Oh man, they're going to hate us in the comments.
Yeah.
Dude,
this
we're
one's
gonna get.
It's going to be a rough week.
Especially if he loses.
Especially if he loses, we're going to get fucking destroyed.
Dude, yeah. If Volk loses, you mean?
Yes.
If Volk gets like rear naked choked in the second round or something, it's gonna be bad.
Here's my thing: there were a lot bigger moments for Volk in the first fight than there were for Islam. I think where Islam was able to edge out that fight was in control, and I think control only. I thought a lot of the damage and the striking and a lot of the things that made that fight for me seem like Volk had won had come from the bigger moments in that fight that again I thought came from Volk. So
yeah,
I think he needs to make a couple of small adjustments. I actually think all of these little circumstances probably work to Volk's favor. This is feeling very much like Bisping and Rockhold all over again. You know what I mean? It's giving me those vibes. And what does it mean that Volk wasn't in training camp? It means that Volk wasn't getting his ass beat on the daily, at least not to the extent that he would be on in a training camp. It means that his mind has been nice and clear because he's been chilling with his family. He hasn't been worrying about anything. He hasn't been like completely obsessed with anything. His body should be healthy. I think the biggest issue he's going to have to compete against right now is going to be that weight cut, because I think he's got like 20 plus pounds he's got to get off before tomorrow.
Jesus.
So
Friday, right?
Yeah. Oh, Friday, right? Tomorrow. It's officially Thursday.
When people
now,
are watching this, it will be Thursday. Yeah.
Right. But Friday is obviously the day he's going to have all that done by. So there are a couple of things that he's going to need to get through. But I think the fight itself against Islam, I think he had a handle on it in the first fight, and I think he made a lot of mistakes, a lot of small mistakes that cost him the fight. But I don't think it's anything that especially somebody like Volkanovski can't make the adjustment for at this point. So I am going to go with Volkanovski. I had him in the first fight. I'm going to have him in this fight. I think he takes the decision.
Dude, I really thought... I mean, I wanted to go first because I thought I was going to be alone.
I thought I was going to be alone, too. And then when you said it, I was like, oh, shit. That's my take.
Yeah.
Wow. Can't believe that. Well, look, I think we took every other person from that part of the world. Mokaev, Saeed, Aliskerov, Ankalaev, Chimaev.
Yeah.
We didn't go with Makhachev.
This would be a good card to do like an all Dagestan parlay, because a lot of those matchups I feel really favor the Russians.
And if we're being fair, I probably would have picked Makhachev over Oliveira at this point. I'm sure Mark would not have.
My heart wouldn't have allowed it.
But I was prepared to pick Makhachev over Oliveira. So I think for me, this is purely a Volkanovski thing.
Mm-hmm. All right,
It's going to
boys.
be interesting, boys. It's
Well,
going to be interesting.
I don't